I think we can go.
Okay. All right, well, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll start out first by introducing myself. My name is Mitch Whitaker. I work at the Letcher County Extension Office in Whitesburg. You never ever been to our Extension Office up there? We have a really nice Extension Office if you're ever up that way. Please stop in. We're located right off the bypass. And that's where we have the bird program. We have a very unique 4-H program at the Letcher County Extension Office, and in our 4-H program, we have a federal permit to take in wild birds of prey, hawks and owls, and the goal of our program is to rescue these birds, get them the medical attention or the food or whatever they need to try to get these animals back out into the wild. The program's been going now for about 7 years, and in those 7 years we've rescued about 180 birds. Out of those 180 birds, only about 30 has all been able to return to the wild. It's not always the happy ending to the story that we would hope for. As rehabilitators, when we get a bird in, we have 6 months, 180 days to get that bird back out into the wild. If that bird, for some reason, can't go back out into the wild, a broken wing or a missing eye or something like that, before we came along, these birds had to be euthanized. There's nothing they can do with them. The veterinarians, as much as they like to take care of them, they can't bandage up a broken wing and then turn that animal back out into the wild because it couldn't take care of itself. So most time these animals had to be euthanized because there was no place for them to go. They are wild animals. We're going to be talking here tonight about wild animals, and we'll be showing you some. But before I get started, I'd like to ask you all, if I was asking you to give me your best definition for a wild animal, what would it be? Now, you can't say all wild animals have big teeth, because not all wild animals have big teeth. You can't say all wild animals have big claws, because they all don't have big claws. But what can you say about all wild animals? Anybody? They're wild, that's correct too. What else?
They have to be capable of hearing frequency.
Ooh, you're getting close.
Don't get old.
Yes.
From us.
Yeah, that's it. We'll go ahead and give her the prize, guys. A good definition for a wild animal is an animal that's not domesticated. Now, domesticated. How many of us got dogs and cats home? Everybody's got dogs and cats home. When you get home tonight, your dog is going to run up to you. His own tail's going to be a wagging. His tongue's going to be hanging out. He's going to be so glad to see you. The reason he's glad to see you is you feed him. You give him shelter, and you give him water, you take care of him. You comb his hair, you trim his nails. I bet some of you even put clothes on your dog. But that's not a wild animal. That's a domesticated animal. If you put clothes on your dog, he's a domesticated animal. And you provide him everything he needs. A wild animal has no one to help. Oftentimes these birds that we have here, their parents, after they're born, their parents will take care of them for about a month. Once they get their feathers in, they start jumping around, and once they take to flight, these guys' parents run off. They're not allowed to stay around. These animals migrate. There's only enough food in a certain area for these animals, and so they actually run their babies off. Now, these birds, it goes out that first year, they're not very experienced, and oftentimes they don't make it. 4 out of 5 of these birds don't survive their first winter. That's why these animals are protected. You're not allowed to hunt them, shoot them, trap them, eat them, or anything like that, because it's so hard for these animals to survive. Now, once they become mature, after about 4 or 5 years, they pick a mate, they mate for life. And once they pick a mate, their chance of survival goes up tremendously. I'm sure some of you married men in the room here today will have to admit the same thing happened to you guys. Once you pick your mate, your survival, and it's the same principle. 2 of you are out there looking for food. If one of you gets something that day, you're both going to get to eat. These old birds are out there by themselves. They don't get to eat today. Nobody doesn't bring them any food. So it's a pretty tough one. Now, what if I told you guys after the program that we're going to load everybody up on a bus and we're going to take you back to Letcher County. In Letcher County, we have a big old mountain back there called Pine Mountain. It's one of the highest spots in Kentucky. 3,000 feet above sea level. Takes you 20 minutes to get up there. I'm going to load everybody up on a bus. We're going to drive back to Letcher County. I'm going to drive you up to the top of that mountain. Once I get you up there, I'm going to take you about 10 more miles back on Little Shepherd's Trail. I'm going to have you so far back in the woods that you don't even know where you're at. And I'm going to open the door and set you out and tell you I'm going to come back and get you in 2 weeks. You think you'd be able to survive on top of that mountain for 2 weeks? He's nodding her head. No, I don't know if you can. I love it when I do these programs for kids. You know, there's always going, yeah, I can. You know. But in reality, it's still getting pretty cool up there in the nighttime. You're going to be there for 2 weeks. You got to find some food. You got to make a shelter. It's going to be pretty tough to survive on what you have with you. But what if before I dropped you off, I give you some tools, some skills, some adaptations that would help you to survive? What if I give you a tent, a blanket, a piece of rope, maybe a knife or a hatchet? What if I actually give you some food and water? Do you think your chances of survival would go up? Sure it would, with those tools to help you. Well, wild animals, guys, are the same way. They have special skills and tools and adaptations that help them to survive out there through those bitter cold nights or through those blistering heat of the summer. These animals are out there in it. They have to have a way to survive. And so that's the goal of my program tonight. I'd like to show you guys some of these adaptations and tools that these animals use. You're going to need a volunteer. You're going to need somebody that's not scared of animals. You're going to need somebody that doesn't care to get up here in front of a crowd. And I need somebody that's actually had all their shots in case they get bit by something. I got any volunteers? Come on, somebody. Come on. I promise nothing will bite you. You want to? I appreciate it. What's your name? Joanne. Thank you so much. Just stand out here and turn around. Joanne, we want to thank you so much for being our guinea pig. Our volunteer tonight. Joanne, what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn you into an owl. Owls are my favorite wild animals. I think owls have more survival skills and tools than any other wild animal, lions, tigers, or anything. But we may be asking you some questions about surviving, and we would like for you to not answer us in your human voice, but to answer us in your best owl voice. So before we get started, let's hear a big hoo from you. Very good. Let's encourage her, guys. Come on. If we're going to put Joanna out into the wild, she's going to need some tools and skills to help her to survive. So let's see what I've got. She'll surely need this. All right, the first thing we're going to give Joanna is a camouflage outfit. Now on this camouflage outfit, you'll notice it's got different shapes and colors, feathers. That's going to help her to blend in with different backgrounds, different shapes and colors behind her. All right, stand up there and do back to it. All she has to do is turn around, and we give her a second camouflage outfit on the back. That's going to blend in with even different backgrounds, different shapes and different colors. Now, how is a camouflage outfit going to help Joanne to survive? What do you think?
Being pointed out by some of the predators.
Exactly right. There's lots of animals that like to eat Joanne. There's coyotes, there's dogs, there's wolves. If they could get a hold of her, they would eat her. But with this camouflage outfit, she might be able to hide from some of those predators. I've got to tell you all about Joanne too. She doesn't eat bird seed or strawberries or grass. You know what she eats? She eats lizards, snakes, frogs, mice, rats, rabbits. She and her diet, guys, is a survival tool in itself. She's able to eat these live animals and get all the hydration she needs. She gets all the liquid she needs from those animals that she eats. She doesn't drink water. Now that doesn't sound like a big survival tool, but it is. This past winter up on Old Pine Mountain we was talking about, it would go weeks. It would be below freezing. The ground be completely frozen. Those other animals are out trying to find some water, some liquid somehow. Not Joanna. All she has to do is keep eating mice and lizards and frogs and snakes and stuff. She will be hydrated. So her diet, guys, is going to be a big survival tool. And this camouflage outfit might help her to sneak up on some of those prey. So I think the camouflage outfit she can use. Let's see, I don't know what she may do. Now Joanna said that if we seen anything at all funny here today, she said we could laugh at it. we seen anything at all funny, she said we could laugh. But the first thing we noticed with our next tool that we give Joanna is these big discs around her eyes. And you may think that's part of her supervision. She does have supervision. She can see 10 times better than we can see. She can spot a mouse across the field that we couldn't even see. But those discs around her eyes are actually part of her super hearing. Her ear holes are not symmetrical like us humans. We have symmetrical ear holes the same distance from her shoulders on the side of her head. Joanna's ear holes are facing forward. They're actually next to her eyes. One's a little higher and one's a little lower. When she hears a sound, she twists her head to tell where the sound is coming from. And then with that big disc around it, she has the ability to amplify the sound. She can curl those feathers around and direct sound waves right into her ear holes, just like us humans, putting our hand up to our ear to hear better. She's able to do that with those big discs. I read in a book where Joanna can hear a mouse run under the snow while she's still up in the tree. So that's pretty impressive. So supervision and super hearing is probably two of her best survival skills. So supervision, super hearing. She needs a supercilium too. You guys know what a supercilium is, don't you? Everybody's got a supercilium. We're just going to give her a real big one. A supercilium, guys, is nothing but a big eyebrow. Now, how is a big eyebrow going to help her to survive? Let's think about it. How about baseball players? How about baseball players wear caps? Keep the sun out of their eyes. You know Joanna, she's one of those animals, what is it that only come out at nighttime? What are those animals called? Nocturnal, yes, she's a nocturnal animal. And that means that she just comes out at nighttime because she has a better advantage over the other animals. Every now and then she's going to be out in the daytime, and if she sees a mouse and she goes after it and the sun blinds her, then she's not going to be able to eat that night. So we're going to give her a big supercilium, a big old protruding eyebrow that's going to help shade her eyes. Supercilium, supervision. What else does she need, guys? What else? What else you think she might need? How about some wings? She needs some wings. Well, you know what? We're not going to give her an ordinary set of wings. I've got two feathers here. I've got a hawk feather, and I got a special owl feather. Now, I don't know if we'll be able to do it here. It might look right, but I want you to listen to the sound that the hawk feather makes. Now listen to the special owl feather that we're going to make Joanna's wings out of. That make a sound. That make a sound. If we was to look at these two feathers under a microscope, we would see that the hawk edge is a straight edge, just like the wing of an airplane. It has an edge, and as the air goes over it, it makes a noise. If we was to look at the owl feather under a microscope, we would see that it has serrated edges. Sort of like the steak knives that we see sometimes, has the wavy waves on it. This edge is like that, and those little waves allow the air to go across it and not create that turbulent sound. Now, if we think about it, Joanna's flying around, she's listening for these animals. Which set of wings you think would be better for her? These old noisy ones back there? These quiet ones. I think if we make her a set of wings out of these quiet feathers, she'll be able to sneak up on her prey anytime. We've made her a set of wings. We've made her some wings. It's going to help her to fly through the night sky and not make us sing. All right, guys. This would be a great time to ask Joanna what she thinks about her camouflage outfit and all her tools. Hey, Joanna, what do you think about all your survival tools and skills that we give you to survive? Okay, guys, we just about got her ready to go out into the wild, but she still needs something else. What else does she need? What? Anybody got claws? She needs some claws to hold on to them animals. Well, I've actually got her a set of special claws, and these claws are called talons. Use one right there, like the one. These talons, guys, have needle-sharp claws on them. Once she sinks these into her prey, there's no way a mouse or a rabbit will be able to get away from them. Now, guys, let's look at all the tools that we give Joanna. We give her a camouflage outfit with 2 different colors. We give her supervision, super hearing, a supercilium. We give her wings that doesn't make any noise, and we give her a set of talons. With all of these special survival tools, guys, do you think her chance of survival is going to go up? Sure it is. And without these guys, she surely wouldn't be able to survive out in the weather. Let's give Joanna a really big hand of applause for that. Oh, I did. Yeah, let's get when you have some supervision, it's hard to see it. Very good. Guys, let's give Joanna another big round of applause. I think this would be a great time, guys, for us to go ahead and let's get out one of these owls and let's see if we see those same survival skills and tools that we give Joanna. Now, guys, this is a great horned owl. This is one of the largest owls that we have here in the Appalachian Mountains. And if you'll notice his camouflage outfit, sometimes these guys are called tiger owls. And can you see how they might be called a tiger owl? Because of his camouflage outfit looks like a tiger. Just like Joanna, all he has to do is turn around. And on the back side, he has a completely different colored outfit to survive. Now, something I didn't mention with Joanna, if you'll notice he's pulsing his throat here. That's a defense mechanism. He's got his mouth open, looks like he's hungry or thirsty. He's not hungry or thirsty to one. That's just a defense mechanism to sort of scare off you humans. Normally, you will never get this close to one of these guys. We have folks that call us all the time and say, there's an owl, a bird in the backyard, and we can walk right up to it. You should never be able to walk right up to one of these animals. If you do, there's something wrong with it. It's weak or it's hurt. First thing we notice about this guy is his big eyes. Him being the largest owl we have in Appalachian Mountains, he has the largest eyeballs. His eyeballs are actually about the same size as a human's eyeball. The only difference is us humans, we can shift our eyes from side to side without moving our head. Owl's eyes are locked straight in their head. He can't turn, his eyes doesn't shift. Now if his eyes doesn't go from side to side, how does he see around? He has to turn his head, doesn't he? That's what he's doing. Now, these guys can't, we've heard that they turn their heads all the way around. They can't really turn, it's all right, it's all right. I'm sorry. Now, these guys can't actually turn their head all the way around. They can turn it about 270 degrees. Now, as humans, we can turn our head all the way to the right and to the left, about 180 degrees. But imagine if you could turn your head all the way to the right, and you could keep turning it just a little bit, both ways, even to the left, you would be able to see all the way around you, but your head doesn't turn all the way around. These guys are able to do this because they have 14 bones in their neck. Us humans, we only have 7, so they've got twice as many bones in their neck, which lets their head just sort of swivel around a little further than ours. You'll notice he's got the big disc that's around his eyes, and his ear hole, one of them's actually right there where my finger is. A little bit of looking over here, there's another one about right there. And when he hears a sound, as I said with Joanna, he tells which direction it's coming from, and he can curl, he has the ability to curl those feathers and make it just like us putting our hands up to her ear. I'm going to try to walk him around. I'd like for everybody to see his claws, because there's going to be a good chance one of these days that one of you guys are going to run up on one of these birds hurt. One's going to fly into your car, maybe fly into your window. You're going to be this big old giant standing over top of him. He's going to be on the ground hurt and scared. And you're going to reach down and say, I'm going to take him, that fella up in Letcher County. When you reach down and grab a hold of this guy, he's going to take them big old claws there, and he's just going to reach out, and he's really going to hurt something. The same way if you hit one with a car, you're out in the middle of the road and the car comes by and hits you, you're not going to be able to help. The reason I'm saying this, we want everyone to be completely safe around these birds. If you find one of these birds hurt or injured, all you have to do is contact the Fish and Wildlife. They have an 800 number. Or you can contact our extension officer. You can get in contact with Quicksand here, and they will get in touch with us. And we'll be more than glad to come out and pick these guys up and get them the attention that they need. Beautiful birds, aren't they, guys? And I want you to notice something else that I was wondering. He actually has a little bit of hair on his feet. Now, when you see the other birds later, they won't not all of them have hair on their feet. And if you'll notice, when these guys are flying around, their feet is actually hanging down. So it couldn't make noise. So they even have hair on their feet, so they'll remain completely silent when they're flying. Let's see if I can get it. Yes, that's just sort of like a strobe light. He's trying his best to scare you up. Now, if he was out in the woods, he's sitting up there, just you and him sitting there, and all of a sudden he starts pulsing. Now, it's a way to scare you. And something else these guys do is they can really puff themselves up, make themselves look twice bigger than what they are. And don't let him be so deceiving. He looks like he's tame. He's sitting up here at my hand, on my hand. If I take him over to the door and untie him, he would take off. And if you'll notice, this guy's got one of his wings, or hangs a little bit lower. And that's enough to consider what they call non-releasable. That means this guy can't take care of himself anymore. And just as sure as we put him out in the wild, you know, he might make it a day or two, but he's slowly, where he can't hunt and chase after animals, it's not going to take him long before this guy would surely die. So we're really fortunate to get to have this program that we get to take in these birds that normally would have to be euthanized. We get to keep them, and we're the end of the line. We keep them for as long as they live, and in return we get to bring them out to programs and schools and stuff like this. They're beautiful birds, they really are. Again, this is our largest bird that you'll see here in the Appalachian Mountain. There is a larger owl called a great gray owl, but we don't have those around here. They're out in the Rockies, so around here this is going to be one of the biggest owls that you'll see. All right. The next bird I want to show you is just a little bit different, but I want you to see that he has the same survival skills and tools that Joanne and the horned owl have. He's clicking his beak. Sometimes when these guys get scared, they will click their beaks. They'll make a real loud sound, and that's to try to scare you away. Even the horned owl, sometimes he will hiss. Now, this is a different type of owl, a little small. What do we see different about this owl than the other owl? You see any differences? He's smaller for first. And if you've seen him out, you might even think he maybe is a baby horned owl where he's smaller. But what's unique about birds, guys, and owls and hawks, these birds are all born in the springtime, and usually by the end of summer, they're about as big as they're ever going to get. Us humans, it takes us 18 years to get as big as we're going to get. Some of us are still growing. I'm as tall as I'm ever going to get. I may get a little wider, but I'm not going to get any taller. It took me 18 years to get that big. These guys get as big as they're going to get the first 4 months of their life. And that's sort of nature's way, guys. We know that their parents are going to kick them out of the nest. They're going to have to take care of themselves that first winter. And this is sort of nature's way. They're not going to be as smart as they need to be that first year, but at least they're going to be as big as they need to be to survive. Now this is a different, did you see any other differences in it? Did you see any other differences? Different feathers, different pattern? Yes. This is actually called a barred owl, B-A-R-R-E-D. And not to be confused with a barn, B-A-R-N. They're actually two different types of owls. Back here in the mountains, we don't have the barn, B-A-R-N. But really, all you do is go 2 hours either direction, and you've got them. You know, you go over in Virginia, you have the barn owls. You go on down towards Stanton, down in the flatter part of the country, you have lots of barn owls. But in the flat country, they don't have many of the barn owls. So it's more, I think it's where we don't have the big barns and the big silos like they do in the flat country to have these animals. And I think back here, these animals are more suited to our hills. And it's safe to say that every holler in Breathitt and Letcher County's got one of these guys. They're the ones that you hear the nighttime that go, ooh, 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 ooh. These are very territorial, and if you're out there, guys, about the edge of dark tonight, and you hear one of these guys make that sound, if you can repeat it or mimic the sound, there's a good chance one of these guys will fly in and see who you are. Because when they stay in an area, they know how much food is in that area. They know how many mice and frogs and lizards. So when another animal comes in, they want to come in and run it off, and that would be you. Now, the easiest way to mimic one of these things is by saying, who cooks for you, like cooking in a kitchen? Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? When you put it together, it goes, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? Nice sound. All right, let's all practice. Everybody do it real loud. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? Practice that tonight and see if we don't see one of these guys come out. We notice something else, his eyes. Got different color eyes. The barn owl is the only owl that you'll see in Kentucky that has a solid black eye and a yellow beak. They're real easy to identify. They have dark eyes and a yellow beak. They're the only ones that have. And when you see these owls, a lot of times you just get that little quick burst to look at them. You don't get to look at them as long as you're looking at these now. So again, when you see one of these guys, look for those markings. Under his chest, he has vertical lines that looks like a bar across his chest. So he's called a barred owl. And look for those black eyes and those yellow beaks and a bird about this size. He doesn't get much bigger than this. Every year he doesn't get any bigger. He's about as big as he's ever going to get. You'll notice this guy actually has a little bit of hair on his feet as well. This is a juvenile bird. He was just born this year, but he's almost as big as a full-grown barred owl. They're the easiest ones, as I said, to recognize because of the black. Turn it on for you.
Turn your head around.
But wait.
Just like a kid.
He's going another way. I can picture with him in his wings, huh? Very good. These guys do have the same survival tools that Joanne and the horned owl has. He's got you notice he's got the big disc around his eyes. He has the supervision. He also has the super hearing. Now, our next bird, guys, he actually has a survival tool that the other birds don't have. Let me get him out and show you his survival tool. Okay, guys, our next bird is actually a scavenger. This guy doesn't really eat live animals. He likes to eat dead animals. And this is a turkey vulture. He's called a turkey vulture because if you look at his feathers in the back, they have a blue tint to them, much like a turkey. He's also got the red face, like turkeys, you know, sometimes they have the red around their bottom. If you was to see this guy when he's a juvenile bird, his first year, he actually doesn't have a red face. He actually has a black face. It takes him about 3 years before he gets the red head. Now, I looked at his eyes. They don't look like, they're not very big, so he probably doesn't have supervision. I can see his ear holes, but he doesn't have any disc around him, so he probably doesn't have very super hearing. His big survival tool, guys, if you'll notice, he has a hole running through his nose. This guy's superpower is his sense of smell. He eats dead animals. When an animal dies, a big column of rotten air rises up into the sky. When we see these guys circling around up in the sky, that's what they're doing. They're honing in on that column of air that's rising up off that dead animal. I read where it said these guys can smell a dead animal 10 miles away. Can you smell McDonald's 10 miles away? No, I don't think so. This guy's also got a bald head. Now this bald head helps him when he's eating in those carcasses and getting a lot of blood and guts on him. If he had hair up or feathers up on top of his head, he would stay matted up and pretty nasty. He couldn't clean it. That's why he actually has a bald head, so to help him with his hygiene. You'll notice this guy really doesn't have super claws. He's got feet about like a chicken. That's because he doesn't really have to kill his prey. Most of the time his prey is already dead there waiting for him. He's the only bird that has a white beak, if you'll notice. A lot of times he likes pulling my cigarettes right out of my pockets with him. But they're pretty fascinating birds. These birds do migrate. They migrate in a unique manner. They do what's called kettling. It reminds you a whole lot, Doran, of a bee swarm. These guys, there'll be 200 of them, and they'll just swarm up into a big old tornado vortex-like thing. And then they come out of there when the heat thermal air pockets catch them just right. And they start filing out of that thing, way up in the sky. And they'll make a string of birds, head to tail, from here to Jackson. And then they'll go, they find another pocket of warm air. Then they'll all swarm up again and start rising up in there. And they just keep using this to migrate. If one of these guys had to fly all the way to Canada, he couldn't do it. His arms wouldn't do it. But he can soar on these big wide wings and can get it up there. They have some other unique survival skills. They're not the greatest in the world, but when this guy eats dead animals, he actually eats animals that are so toxic it would kill other animals and even us humans. He has a nickname called the Purifier. He's able to eat toxic material and it really not hurt him. And the way he does it is he actually regurgitates, he spits up a digestive juice on the rotten animals that helps the process, and he's able to digest this food. Now, we need this guy around. If we didn't, we'd have all kinds of dead animal carcasses laying around. So this guy, he's sort of our garbage collector, let's say. He lost one of his wings, got injured, and he's never going to be able to return back in the wild. But if you'll notice, it is starting to grow back new feathers. It took him about 2 years to grow those feathers back. But he still will never be able to be returned to the wild because he just can't fly really strong at his brain. But they're beautiful birds. They have about a 5-foot wingspan. And all the birds that you see here tonight are all native birds that you could see possibly in your backyard. All the birds. All right, the next birds that I want to show you guys.
I imagine these little birds are having a heyday with all these dead deers around, aren't they?
Yeah. This is turkey vulture. We're having a big problem with them back in Letcher, down here back in Letcher County. I don't know if y'all are with the blue turtle. Yeah. And we're also running into a little problem with rabies in the raccoons. And they're coming over from Virginia, so there's a lot of things happening to our wildlife right now. The next bird that I have, I've shown you owls. This next bird isn't an owl. He's actually a hawk. This next guy is actually a hawk, and you'll notice that he's a little different than the owls. Sort of made a little different. This is a red-shouldered hawk. We've heard of red-tailed hawks. They have the red tail. Well, this guy is a red-shouldered hawk, and he's called a red shoulder because the leading edge of his wing has a red color to it. You'll notice there. And he also has a completely copper-covered chest. He's real brown from the top to the bottom. I just didn't have room tonight. I was going to bring a red-tailed hawk as well and let you see the difference in a red tail and the red shoulder. The red-tailed hawk's a little bit bigger than this guy, a little bit. And the red-tailed hawk has some white patches here in his chest. This guy is real easy to recognize because he is brown all the way down from his neck down to his feet. This guy also has one of the prettiest tail feathers you've ever seen. It's got the pretty white stripes, markings on it. As we know, the red-tailed hawk has bright orange tail feathers. These animals, guys, change. As I said before, their size doesn't change, but their feathers change. A red-tailed hawk doesn't have red tail feathers its first year. This guy doesn't have the pretty striped tail his first year, and a bald eagle doesn't have his white tail the first year. I think the bald eagle takes 5 years before he gets a white tail. The red-tailed hawk takes a couple before he gets the red tail feathers. But again, their size is the same. We can just look at these birds, and sometimes we can guess a little bit of their age. 10 years is a long time for these guys to survive out there on their own in the wild and produce babies. However, birds sometimes in captivity can live 30 years. So we can tell by that the part of their life that is so hard is them trying to survive. It's that hard for them. They put their life on the line every time they go after something to eat. All they've got to do is accidentally hit a car, a piece of fence line, or whatever. And that's it for these guys. This guy actually, if you'll notice, his one wing's a little crooked, and he's actually lost his eye. This bird would have normally had to have been euthanized. But we're very fortunate we get to keep these guys and bring them out to these programs. And we promise that we're going to take care of them for as long as they live. And in return, we get to bring them out and show them these programs. Pretty fascinating, isn't it? These are very common. They make a real loud, shrill sound. If you hear them in the springtime, these are very common birds. You see them flying around a lot. But the easiest way for you to distinguish him from the red tail is his size and the color of his cheeks. Hawks have the same survival skills and tools that owls have a lot of times. The supervision, not so much on the super hearing, but they do have the talons, they do have the camouflage outfits. But one thing that hawks have that the owls don't have is special nostrils, special nose holes. These animals, sometimes the peregrine falcon reaches speeds of over 200 miles an hour when he's going after his prey. I don't know if you've ever stuck your head out of the car and going down the road 50 miles an hour. You can't get your breath going 50 miles an hour. So you could imagine these birds would have a problem breathing at such high speeds for over a period of time chasing animals. Their nose holes are constructed in such a way that they're still able to breathe no matter how fast they're going. It still lets the air come into the ventricles so they can breathe while they're chasing. The owls, a lot of times, they don't really chase after stuff that long. They drop from perches down on it. And that's what I wanted to tell you guys next. We've had the hawks and owls. Our next bird that I'm going to get out is actually a falcon. And the difference between hawks and falcons is sort of easiest described as a difference between a thoroughbred horse and a mule. A thoroughbred horse, it has those long, skinny legs. It's able to make big strides, and it goes really, really fast. Falcons have long, skinny wings. If you see them, they're always flapping really fast all the time. And they're made for speed, and they only chase down grouse and birds and stuff. Now, hawks and owls, they're more like the old mule. They're a little sturdier built, a little fatter legs, a little fatter wings, and they just drop down from a high perch and catch fur-bearing animals on the ground. While falcons are much faster, they can chase after birds. A hawk will never be able to chase after a blue jay and catch it. He might be able to pin it down on the ground, but he'll never be able, or a grouse or a pheasant. So that's sort of the difference between falcons and hawks, is actually the prey that they hunt and their body structure. Again, these are real common birds for our area. As I said, this next bird is a falcon. Not only is it a falcon, but it is the smallest falcon in the United States. the United States. He's a rackety little thing. He is a juvenile bird, which means he's still on his first year. If we was to see this bird next year, he would actually have really bright orange and bright blue feathers. However, his size won't get much bigger than this. And I want everybody to notice the mylar. They're actually called mylar stripes by his eyes. Does everybody notice the stripes that are around his eyes and goes under his eyes? Only falcons have these marks. And what they are, if I was to really get up on stage and get farther away from you, it would be hard for you to distinguish if he's looking at you. He's actually got some other little white patches here in the back. And by the time you start looking at him from a long distance, you can't really tell if he's looking at you. Now that might not sound like a big survival tool to you guys, but for these birds out to be able to... And if you'll notice, he's got a little boo-boo on his nose. He actually, I think he had ran into a door or something when we got him. And this is one of them that we're hoping is one of those happy ending stories. All we have to do is get this guy back up to his weight, and we hope that we can release him here before winter comes on. Again, these are the smallest falcons. Now this guy can't eat a squirrel or a rabbit, but now he'll eat birds, grasshoppers. I've even seen pictures of him eating worms. Pretty fascinating birds. And as I said before, his little survival tool is actually you can't see where his eyes are. And actually look at those eyes, and you see that one back behind the other. Falcons usually have, they have the talons, but a lot of times they have really, really long toes. And if you'll notice how long the toes are, and he's just saying, hey, it's time for you to feed me. It's time for you to feed me. Very good. As I said, this is their smallest falcon in the United States. And we're so tickled to have our next bird, guys. I told Norman those guys earlier. We've been working on this next bird for over a year and a half. When we first started our program, we thought about eagles, but there was a big expense coming along with them. They had to have a couple of football fields for the room to have them in. Now we do rehabilitate and take in hawks and owls. If you hit a hawk or an owl today down in Jackson and you call the Fish and Wildlife, they will direct you to our center because we take care of this area. But one thing that we didn't want, that we weren't able to rehab was eagles. We're starting to get these eagles now. We have them at Carfork Lake. I don't know if y'all have them down here at your lakes. We have them migrate through sometimes, but these are starting to be birds that we're seeing. There is a mated pair at the Carfork Lake, and we've been monitoring them with the Army Corps engineers for the past 6 years. They've turned out 2 or 3 babies every year. They have lost one of them that we know of, and each year they produce these babies. They'll hang around just a little while, and by winter time they're completely run off. As long as we can keep that mated pair there at Carfork Lake, they'll continue to turn out babies each year. But if something happens to one of those mates, then the other eagle will go off and will search out another mate and will migrate out the next time. The reason these birds stay with us there at Carfork is they're a mated pair. They're taking care of each other just like we talked about earlier. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get them out. We'll talk a little bit more when I get them out and get it up. You can take all the pictures you want.
Mitch, have you ever been infected the face?
No, they, a lot of times it's not their, it's not their beaks that you have to worry about, it's their claws. These talons are, and that's usually what they grip and grab everything with, is these talons. And that's really what I keep my attention on. Now they can peck you and stuff, but I've never had one to. I've got some nasty looking scars on from their feet. I can show you. All right, this is the American bald eagle. As you'll notice, he's actually lost one of his wings, and that's how we're actually able to keep these animals. All the birds that we have, you know, something's wrong with them, they've been deemed non-releasable. A bird that can be released, we want to get it back out as quick as we can, back out into the wild. This guy came to us from the American Eagle Foundation over in Dollywood. They're actually a part back behind the scenes. You don't hardly see them as much.
How much will that bird weigh?
How much you think? Guess.
I think 15, 20 pounds.
15, 20 pounds. Anybody else? Anybody else want to guess? How much? 9? Can't do it. Hit it right on the head. When we got this guy, he weighed about 8 pounds. He's up to 9 pounds. The longer I hold him, I think he weighs 109 pounds. He is a male, so he's a little bit smaller. Females are a little bigger than the males. You know, when we see the beautiful cardinal, the male, he's so pretty in that big bright red outfit, and the female, she's a little scruffier looking, she's not as pretty. That's a survival tool. He's a decoy. When a predator comes by, mommy, she's over here hitting the weeds and the babies. A predator comes by to eat him, he jumps out in that big bright red suit and says, hey, come over here and get me. Well, birds of prey, they're identical. The males and females look just alike. They share in the responsibilities of taking care of the babies, taking care of the nest. The only way you can tell the males from the females is by weighing them. The females weigh about 25% more. A female bald eagle will go about 15 pounds on the average, and if this guy would have had the rest of his money, he would probably be about a 10-pound bird. The males are about 10 pounds, and the females are around 15. This guy's 4 years old. You'll notice he's still got a little brown in his comb. If you see this bird next year, after 5 years, they've reached maturity, he'll have a cotton white head and a cotton white tail. He'll mold out the tail feathers and slowly have all the white feathers. These birds are big fish eaters. They actually have special little phalanges on the bottom of their feet that helps them hold on to those slimy fish. However, they do eat squirrels, rabbits. I'm feeding this guy quails. He eats a whole bunch of stuff. And if you'll notice his shrill sound that he makes, when you see these guys out in the movies, you hear that psh, psh, that pretty sound of them flying up in there. That's actually a red-tailed hawk sound. These guys make that old barking sound. That's why they don't use their voice much in the movies, because I think it sounds like a duck quite a bit. But these birds, guys, in the early 1800s, there was over 100,000 bald eagles in North America. They started putting a bounty out on them because these birds were very disruptive to the salmon population. Oftentimes there was a reward offered for a dead eagle. And the way I read in books where it said the way you could redeem your reward was you had to bring in 2 eagle claws. You had to bring in 2. They didn't want you to just bring in 1 claw. They wanted you to bring in 2 claws. And this practice went on for years until about the end of World War II, their numbers dwindled down to about 4,800. And that was when Congress passed the Migratory Bird Act, and that's when we started protecting these guys. And now, thanks to the efforts of Dollywood and other rehab facilities, these birds are no longer on the endangered list. They still are protected and threatened birds, but they're no longer in a threat of being extinct. These are our American symbol of America. This guy, we named him General Boone. And the reason we named him General Boone was, just like Daniel, he saw Kentucky for the first time through the Cumberland Gap. And so that's how we come up with the name of General Boone. Beautiful bird, isn't it? Did you ladies get a good picture. Let me see if I can mark him back there. We'll be as still as we can with him, try to not make him jump away. Beautiful. And if he does try to jump away, everybody just sort of stays still. I'll wrestle him to the ground. Those first couple of weeks, me and him really had a time. But each day he gets a little better. When I first got him, he was, no one had touched him but the veterinarian. So he was wild as a buck. And I told the young man up there earlier, my experience most time with these was someone had actually already trained them and I could handle them and feed them and take care of them. He's been the first one that I've actually trained from the wild. So I'm real tickled to get to have done that. Yeah. And actually I've got two gloves on here. This one on the outside is a sheath. And when we first got him, he was bruising my arm up through these gloves. But now he's getting better, you know, every day. He's not standing so bad. Amazing, aren't they? Beautiful bird. Now, and the bald eagle, guys, is the golden eagle is just a little bit bigger than the bald eagle. The golden eagles, I think, aren't really as pretty as these guys. They look a little more scruffier, just patches of different hair. And they finally end up with that blonde patch on top of their head where they get the name of being a golden eagle. This guy, if you notice, he's sort of more black than he is brown. You golden eagle.
Mitch, do you know what happened to this one?
Yes, from the veterinary report that we received, this bird came from Marion County, Tennessee, and it actually got shot. And the veterinarian report, I didn't really say any details about who shot it, but they were concerned more about the lead poison than there was the losing of the wing. You know, they were more concerned about what the lead did to his system. We have to watch about when we feed these birds. You know, sometimes folks brings me in squirrels and rabbits. I just got to make sure that when we cut the food up, I don't have any lead in their pellets. It's a trick keeping these guys in food because we do have to freeze it and thaw it out for them. And they say they don't have to have live animals, but they do have to have fresh meat because that's how they get all of their liquid. Remember, they don't drink water. Now, in their stalls, we have a pan of water in there. These birds don't drink water. What's the pan of water in there for? Very good, very good. Usually the little girls get it. The boys don't usually get that.
How about when you lose?
Very good, very good. I'm glad you said that. Some of the requirements that requires we have to take them to so many programs a year. And the molted feathers do go back in, and they're used by tribal councils for Native American exhibits and stuff. And actually, when we were waiting for this bird, we were wanting a bird that could fly. But, they said, don't come by very often. They can lose an eye, and still be considered non-releasable and still fly. But they also told me that when a bird like this becomes available, it's offered to those Native American education centers before it's offered. And how we was able to get this one so quick is that all their facilities was full. They didn't need any more. Dollywood was ready to release a couple, and so we were at the permits and everything at the right time. But then we did wait a year and a half to get the perfect bird. We could have got one earlier that was just in a stall that you'd have to drive by, or you could walk by and look at, but we couldn't transport it. And we wanted one we could really get out with it and take out like this. And he's slow. I couldn't touch his chest a week ago, so he's coming right around, and I've actually got a little hood that goes on him, and every time I try getting that out, he goes nuts. So it's a slow process each day, getting used to me. And he's 4 years old. These guys can live up to 30, so he's going to be around for a while, so I figured it'd be good to get on good terms with him and go slow so we have a good relationship.
Do you train something like that through reward?
Well, we actually, if we would have wanted him to fly for us, we would have done it through a reward system, like I was talking to this young man about falconry. He would have been flying for his food. Since he's not going to fly, the only thing I wanted to accomplish with him was being able to pick him up and hold him. So all I had to do was just keep him fat and happy. And there was no aggression hardly whatsoever. But when you're getting them to fly to you, you are fooling with them when they're a little hungry, they're a little more excited, and you have to watch about them getting there because that's the only way they'll respond to us. They're wild animals. All we can do is play with their food and make them want to come to us. But even this guy with one wing, if I took him over out of the door and untied him, he'd take off. They're always going to be wild animals. And I'm actually trying to work with him to see if I can get him to wave. Junior Blue, can you wave this crowd? No, he's not used to that. We had him done, I don't know if Dorian ever got to see the other one. We had a great horned owl, and he opened all of our programs. He'd done it about 7 years, and that bird would wave so good. We lost him a couple of years ago, and I'm trying my best to get this guy. All right. I've actually talked tonight about how hard it is for these guys to survive, all the tools that they have to survive. But one thing I didn't talk about was why these birds are important to us. Why do we need them? Let's think about bats. Bats eat pounds and pounds of mosquitoes every night. If all of a sudden we lost all our bats, you guys wouldn't have been able to come out to this program. There have been so many bugs and mosquitoes out, you couldn't go outside without a suit like a bee suit. Bees. 1 in every 3 bites of food that you guys eat today was helped produced by a bee. What if all of a sudden we lost all of our bees? We'd lose 1/3 of all of our food. Let's think about the little kestrel. One little kestrel, one family of a kestrels, a mommy and a daddy and 3 little babies. In one summer, you'll eat 1,000 mice. The little birds, not counting the big ones. What if all of a sudden we lost all our hawks and owls? We would be run over with lizards, snakes, mice, frogs, rats. They'd be in our houses and in our grocery stores. So guys, these animals are a very, very important part in our environment, and that's why they're protected. I love doing programs that has young adults in it, such as yourselves. These animals' futures rely on you guys to make sure that we don't continue the littering and destroying the streams. It's up to you guys to make sure we quit using these pesticides that destroys their eggs. And guys, we can't cut down every tree. We have to manage them some way where we can work with these animals because they are a very, very important part of our environment. A lot of times folks ask me, how did I get started doing this program? I got started when I was, I might have been about your age. There was a book called My Side of the Mountain. Anybody read it by any chance? My Side of the Mountain. It's a story about a little boy who lives in the city, and he wants to run away to the country. And he reads books and learns how to make shelters and how to grow vegetables and all that stuff. And he actually runs away from home, and he runs and he lives in the country, and he befriends a falcon and all. It's real neat little book. It made me want to go out and just enjoy nature. When I got to checking on it, you had to be a little older to do the falconry, so I sort of lost interest in it till I got older, and now I got back into it. But it all started, guys, from reading a book. I'm sure each one of you all out there have a favorite animal. I've got one son, his favorite animal is penguins. And I got a daughter, she loves turtles, So I'm sure you all have a favorite animal that you like, and your young kids as well. Once you start reading and learning about those animals, you'll be amazed at what all there are. Lots of careers and jobs out there. We need more biologists and veterinarians and forestry people and science people. But it all starts from learning. I'm going to close my program tonight, guys, with a really great book. It's way below some of you's reading level, but it's a great book. I read this to kindergartners and college kids. It's a great book. Lots of good stories in it. It's called Little Hoot. I'll hold it up so y'all can see the pictures. It says, once upon a branch, there was a fellow named Little Hoot. Little Hoot was a happy little owl. Said he liked going to school, just like most of the kids I show these programs to. He even liked playing hide and go seek with his forest friends. He said he even liked it fine when Mama Owl said it was time to practice. She said, it's time to practice pondering, sweetie. Let's all practice pondering just for a second. Just for a second. She said, all right, now let's practice your staring. She said, stare to the right. She said, stare back to the left. She said, stare back to the right. But there was one thing that Little Hoot did not like. The little kids love this. One thing he didn't like was bedtime. Oh, no. He said, because when you're an owl, you have to stay up late. That's just the way it is. Look at him here. He's mad. He's talking to himself. And he says, all my other friends get to go to bed much earlier than me. He said, why do I always have to stay up and play? It's just not fair. Uh-oh. He says, if you want to grow up to be a wise old owl, you must stay up late, said Papa Owl. And besides, I don't give a hoot what time your friends go to bed. In this family, we go to bed late. That's the rules of the roost. Stay up and play for one more hour and then you can go to sleep, said Mama Owl. 1 whole hour, said Little Hoot. 1 whole hour. So off he went. Look at him. He's mad again. He's talking to himself and he says, when I grow up, I'm going to let my kids go to bed as early as they want. So he went off and he played with the swords and he played with the jungle gym. And he built a fort and he even jumped on a big pile of leaves. He jumped on his bed and he said, can I stop playing now, said Little Hoot. 10 more minutes of playing, mister, and don't ask me again. So, all right, and off he went. He was mad again. So he went and played for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, there, he was done. He come running in and said, there, I've played for 1 whole hour. Now can I go to bed? Yes, now you can go to bed, but wait. Off Little Hoot flew, and Little Hoot flew right into his bed. But wait, said Mama Owl, what about your bedtime story? Papa said, and don't forget your glass of water. But it was too late. You guys think that? Little Hoot was already fast asleep, snoozing and drooling and snoring. Here's my favorite part. So they tucked in his feathers and they gave him a peck on the cheek, and the owl lived happily ever after. Great little book. Great little book. I want to thank y'all so much for sitting here and listening to me tonight. If you're ever up in Letcher County, please stop by our extension office. We have other birds up there. We're just limited to what we can carry. We'd love for you to see all of our stuff. We'd like to show off our extension office. We're real proud of it. Again, we want to thank all of y'all so much. Anybody have any questions? I did all the talking. Anybody have any questions you wanted to ask, or anything you didn't see that you wanted to see? Okay. Dorn, thank y'all so much for having me down.